Okay. Hello. Thank you for listening to Diploma Sports. My name is Nick, and joining me on the line is Ghost Politics, my conservative counterpart. Hello, Ghost. How are you? Yes. Yes. Today, yeah, we're going to discuss the state of surveillance in this country. We'll go through the issues that mass surveillance poses, as well as discuss, the history and the politics around it. Just a little house cleaning for everybody. Remember to check out our website at wordpress.com/diplomasports. And look for us on Facebook at facebook.com/diplomasports and on Twitter using at diplomasports. Please give us feedback and let us know if you messed or if we messed up, like I just messed up right there, or if we forgot to mention anything. Okay, so yeah, let's begin. Well, that was pretty good because I don't even know what half those things are. So yeah, if you're super into it, then there you go. Okay, so yeah, let's begin. So I guess just to sum up, what was it, like 2013, 2012? It was a couple years ago. We had Edward Snowden, who leaked a variety of files to the news source The Guardian, who then disseminated that to the world. And we kind of already knew this was going on, but basically the whole 1984, we're afraid of predictions of mass surveillance, spying on Americans, spying on foreign leaders, all of those kind of things are. So basically, most of that is true. It's very crazy how these programs work. I mean, Edward Snowden himself is described on numerous interviews exactly what the government has been doing, and it's pretty crazy. So that's kind of just the overview. Obviously, this poses a lot of problems constitutionally and in regard to security, as in regard to freedom, in regard to liberty. So yeah, my basic thoughts. I think this is one of those things where we actually kind of agree. Obviously, the government should not have the ability to spy on your everyday life. We live in a free society, and I think it's pretty much outrageous and quite frankly bullshit that they are doing this and that they have been doing this on such a massive scale since 9/11. Yeah, and I mean, okay, so like let's the first off, let's just kind of discuss, why is this such an issue? Is this just a political thing where you and I, because we study politics, we think this is a horrible, gross breach of freedom, or is this something where if you're the everyday citizen who doesn't follow politics, why does this matter? Why should we care? Your initial thoughts? Yeah, and I mean, ultimately too, if you look at it too, for someone who say, now we live in a society where we don't have to worry about being locked up because we're a political prisoner. I mean, I at least hope that if me opposing Trump is not going to get me thrown in jail. But what if, for example, those boundaries, those barriers, those freedoms started to fall? I mean, this is clearly a historical slippery slope argument, but I think anybody who has ever followed politics or studied history knows that people with power are always going to try to grasp for more power. That's why we have laws in the first place. And yeah, so it's very frightening to me. I think this is something that people should genuinely care about. I was very enraged when this was originally leaks by Edward Snowden, and I do think it's pretty despicable that even Democrats on my side, like Dianne Feinstein, has said, that he is ultimately a traitor. Which brings me to my first topic, because before we sort of dive deep into the specifics of the surveillance state and what we can do and our ideas on that, let's just talk about the man himself, Edward Snowden. He is in my Yes, he is in my mind a hero. They've already made a movie about him. Granted, I don't think it was very good, but they did make a movie about him. They've made a documentary about him. He's been on pretty much every, political talk show that you can think of. He's the one who brought this to light. And while you could say that he maybe, wasn't really the person who brought this to light, because a lot of us already kind of figured this was going on anyways, he really did confirm it. So with my glorious and awesome President Obama, soon to leave office, I am really hoping that he'll do me one last service and make me actually really think that he was a great president and pardon Edward Snowden. Now he's probably not going to, so I know I'm wishfully, but why not? Why just if Obama, if for some reason you are listening to this podcast in some way, shape, or form, please just pardon Edward Snowden. He does not deserve to be in Russia. So yeah, I assume you agree with me on that. Yeah, I mean, well, what about those FISA court opinions? I mean, they are essentially getting legal approval for a lot of these things, but they're just doing it in secret, and that's ultimately the sort of the nefarious nature of all of this. Yeah, no, and I mean that's and for good reason. So yeah, so I think that's a pretty standard thing. Neither of us, both of us hope that Obama will pardon him. Neither of us actually think he will do it. So as much as I'd love to expand upon this, and please, Obama. Yeah, okay. Well, let's jump to that topic too, because I figured we'd talk about that too. I mean, Trump said before that he's a traitor, that he should be executed. I believe he has said before. Now, granted, that was during the Republican primary, and everybody says crazy shit during that time. Yeah, I mean, but in the whole war on terror, I mean, is that not a means if he's really determined to get rid of extremist Muslims in this country? I mean, he's said before that Apple should have turned over the San Bernardino evidence. Um, Yeah, no, I agree. And I guess that's another point too that I want to touch on about this isn't just the government spying on you. So if you're thinking, oh well, I'm not doing anything bad. It's really annoying when you book a hotel and then you cancel that hotel reservation, and every 3 months you still see on your Facebook feed on the side that same picture of that same hotel you just canceled, asking if you wanted to go rebook for there. I mean, granted, that's just a minor inconvenience. These tracking patterns are used every day. No, I just want to reiterate to the listeners that was not some random sound because I thought he was wrong or anything. That was me getting an email. So I apologize for that. I'll have to figure out how to turn that off in the future. Yes, exactly. Um, so I guess yeah, I veered off a little bit. Back to the Trump administration. Why, for any reason, should I believe that he's actually going to do anything about this? Has he said anything to indicate that security, or I mean that freedom, rather, instead of security, would be an issue that he would actually defend? I mean, I'm worried about him burning up the Constitution entirely. But what are your thoughts as far as why should I trust Trump? Yeah. Well, maybe I should rephrase that. As far as security is, or not security, as far as mass surveillance is concerned, um, I would say anybody that he's appointed to his team. I don't think Rudy Giuliani is a representation of due process and other things. He is the one who instigated stop and frisk. So well, I don't have my numbers in front of me to argue vehemently against that, but we'll just leave that one for now. So, and I think the point you made is actually pretty valid. That even if you save a few lives, doesn't necessarily make it right. Um, which actually does bring me back to my next question, which is sort of discussing the dynamic of security versus freedom, which is really the at the crux of most political arguments. If you want more security, you generally have to sacrifice freedom, and so on and so forth. But in this case, are you and I really not taking the war on terrorism seriously if we do reduce the National Security Agency's power? If we look at the NSA and say no, these mass surveillance programs um, are shouldn't exist. What would be your answer to that? If say a high national security advisor said, no, we need this mass surveillance. We stop terrorist attacks every day. Granted, I would look them in the face and say bullshit. But what would be your response? Yeah, no, and that makes sense. I mean, obviously, if you have clear evidence that say somebody's building a bomb or somebody's like that, obviously, spying and sleuthing has prevented a lot of tragedies over the course of history. So we can't just completely get rid of the NSA. But I think it is worth noting and looking at the facts, which I don't think a lot of people look at. I think people stick to their ideologies a lot in arguments and don't actually look at the numbers of it. And many top national security agencies have said, we're not agencies, but people have said within these branches that they do a lot of searching and don't necessarily get a lot of expected results. It's not as if the expansion of the system has really prevented a lot of terrorist attacks. And we hear the stories about all the time about how these things could have been prevented, but not often about things that were actually prevented. Now, I don't know if that's just a failure on part of these agencies to disclose that information or the media on reporting it. But generally speaking, it seems as if, like many government programs, you would argue, I'm sure, we're not actually being very effective with what we're attempting to accomplish. Yeah, I mean, why would you want to travel to Syria anyways? I mean, yeah, because then we actually win. We actually win the argument. I mean, ultimately, we're never going to defeat ISIS simply by bombing them. We have to eliminate their propaganda, more or less, or make it so that their numbers dwindle and dwindle, and that their ideology basically becomes irrelevant because it should be irrelevant in the modern world. Yeah, no, and in the meantime, spying on the German chancellor when and alienating our allies. I mean, I'm gonna sound like a conservative here, but it just seems like I mean, not the Republicans, the republic, the government itself is just very incompetent when it comes to this issue because those ideas that you floated around seem like something that should have been floated in one of those rooms a long time ago. Often makes you wonder if Obama is just kind of shrugging his shoulders on this issue because I would like to think is someone who would you would think liberally you would see that this is not the ends do not justify the means, and the results really aren't speaking. It'd be one thing if we had, like I said, stopped 20 terrorist attacks this year, all from this mass surveillance. Then you can make maybe the case for me. But I don't think that politicians have done a good enough job, and I think it's kind of outrageous that we're still stuck with this same system, despite I would say a pretty overwhelming majority of people being uncomfortable with this very idea. I mean, people get mad when they have to take their shoes off at the airport. I think people, if they really understood how much they're being spied on, would really not just shrug a shoulder at this particular issue. Yeah, I don't need if Google wants to, or not Google, but if like this company wants to sell me something, if the Vans wants to sell me new shoes, then they should work on their own advertising and sell me, and not just spy on what I'm on what I'm buying and use that to boost their own profits. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, you believe in the free market. I think it's a sham. But if you do buy into the concept of the free market, then yeah, you shouldn't need to do that. You're essentially taking the shortcut out. It's the steroids of marketing campaigns, more or less. Yeah, no, I understand completely. Um, all right. So, do you have any specific points you want to touch on? I think we kind of went through mine pretty quickly. We really need to find better topics that we disagree on. Well, no, I agree with I agree with the sentiment that they can certainly benefit to us. I think you're underselling a bit on how terrible we are to them, to make them not want to associate with our culture in general. But nonetheless, I agree with the general. Oh, we could spend some time talking about religion, certainly. Um, Yeah, and media do your job and actually report on things and stop just making it such a is he a traitor, is he not, because we don't need any more four panelist CNN discussions on this because nobody learns anything. Yeah, if I cannot emphasize that enough to any of our five listeners right now, is please use great independent media. Anything that you do not go to MSNBC, CNN, or Fox News and expect to actually be informed about an issue. All you'll be informed about is how to argue with your boss if he possibly watches a different channel. You're really not going to know anything. I would say Democracy Now! Is a good source for that. They provide actual, just it's more or less just how the news used to be. Obviously, there is a little bit of a liberal bias there. The people who run the show obviously are in favor of a liberal agenda, but ultimately they do report the facts, and they were just as harsh on Hillary as they were on Trump throughout the whole course of the election. So I think that that's something worth noting. So yeah, I mean that's the surveillance state discussion. Again, we will try to do our best to find something that we actually disagree on. But what else? What did you want to segue into? Yes, I knew you would be very gleeful when we were going to talk about this. So, so you think it'll take 600 assassination attempts to get rid of him this time? Well, I mean, he was. I think someone I follow posted that he's a very complicated man, and I think that's the best way to sum it up. Obviously, he's a humanitarian disaster. So many things that he did were heinous and horrible. There's also yeah, but there's also a fair amount of credit that I can give to somebody who had the world's largest and craziest military on his doorstep, more or less, and still towed his his beliefs, still fought back against various assassination attempts. Ultimately, for what I think he believed was right. Obviously, he was still, like I said, a horrible person in a lot of ways. But I think complicated is the best way to sum it up. I think Cuban migrants that have settled in Miami have every right to be cheering and thankful. I mentioned this to you before, but I'm a big fan of Dan Levitard. I listen to him all the time. He was very visibly hurt by the U.S. playing baseball there, and sort of the connotations of that, having Obama shake his hand and all of these things. And I know that his parents took that very hard because it felt like we were sort of siding with this dictator who's killed so many people. So I can understand from that perspective why people like that may be a little happier, might be breaking out the champagne. I can understand how it's one of the last sort of falls that we needed for communism to fall across the world. I think it'd be great for the well, I mean, it's not socialism. I'm an advocate for socialism, not an advocate for communism. Well, I mean, I think, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but generally, I would say that both the free market has never truly existed, and I would say that Marx's general ideology on socialism and communism in that exist has never existed. One of my actually randomly enough, one of my youth leaders when I went to church back in the day used to say this to me. He used to say that you know the reason that conservative doesn't work is because people are greedy. The reason that liberalism doesn't work is because people are lazy. And ultimately, with communism, like you said, yeah, you eventually need a strong executive branch to sort of crap on and kind of force, submission of this sort of, plan of equalizing the labor and all of those sort of things, and ultimately that just becomes muddied and doesn't seem to work. Sometimes. Yeah, no, I mean, I guess my main pushback is I would say your analysis of socialism, where people gain less from working. While on the surface, yeah, there may be some people that do not work and then sort of ride on other people's coattails, but I don't think that's necessarily a fair characterization. I Yeah, and maybe that's just me being more ambitious than that. That I would never be okay. I mean, as someone who's currently unemployed, I can. I do resent your IQ use of the IQ, because I think the IQ tests are completely lame and don't act well. Not lame. They're just completely bullshit. They don't really actually describe anything. They're ethnocentric at best. No, no, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying IQ tests are ethnocentric. Well, thank you. I'm glad you don't associate me with the simpler folk. Yeah, and I generally think that at least like I said, I mean that it basically was saying is that people are lazy, and I think there is a certain pocket of society that is in that sense. But I would guess my other pushback would be that even the laziest person should still get health care. But again, another topic we're not going to discuss and break down why socialism entirely in this one podcast. But I would say that there are certain things that I think you should have regardless of whether you're a lazy piece of shit or if you're. Maybe the U.S. government's just too big, though. I mean, maybe socialism could never work in the state. Maybe if California did secede or something like that, it could work here. I can definitely concede that obviously a full-fledged like Swedish style government here would not work for certain states, and obviously with 50 different states with 50 different interests, it's not realistic to incorporate that here. But I will say we are still the only country with an advanced without advanced real medical care for everybody. I mean, we're completely behind on that. Yeah, we can also. Yeah, I mean, we're nothing like people in Florida. I mean, it's people want to say we're all one country, but I mean, really, if we, yeah, yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I mean, they're also not an empire. They're not a power. They're not. It's not like Norway's going to be, moving or shifting any sort of anything at the UN conventions. I mean, it's just yeah, and I mean, and granted, that that might be a slightly better position. I would prefer our country wasn't flying death drones over the Middle East either. But that sort of belief would be naive at best. I mean, I would rather have us let them do their own thing. We don't need to intervene. We can't just get out of the Middle East now. But I wish people 15 years ago would have said, "Hey, we could just kind of not do that." Yeah, I know 9/11 happened, but don't you think that the thing that they wanted us to do is exactly what we just did? Yeah, 90% approval rating. He could do whatever he wanted, and that's what he chose. So oh, it can always be worse, right? This thrilling game is going on between Kansas City and Denver right now. Almost done with the first quarter. It's a whopping 0-0. Fantastic. I have them to win. I guess we can now transition over and talk sports a little bit if that's. Well, I mean, if it's legitimate, I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't go through it just to like see. I mean, you want Trump to be legitimate president, right? You don't want it to be like, oh, he actually technically didn't win, but we're just going to go ahead with it because sore losers, right? Like, I mean, well, and then that's fine. Like, and if he does, then he does. I've accepted the fact that he's president. I'm not expecting this to just be like, oh wow, actually, there's 2 million votes in Michigan and in Wisconsin and Florida we didn't count, and but if there is, then they should still be counted. I mean, we it should be legitimate. Um, well, well, I don't even think it's voter fraud. Like, it didn't even necessarily be that. Like, I don't know. Just if there's any sort of doubt, then let's look into it. I mean, that's what these election councils. That's what all these things are for. Yeah, yeah, I would say that characterizes my. Yeah, you need a full fledged. You need like it was a full fledged, just crazy. Yeah, it's just kind of ridiculous to think at this point that this is gonna happen. And they'd all have to be for Democrat, and they all have to be in the same. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's not going to happen, people. So I mean, and if they were hiding ballots, this is really bad. It would be really nice if they would have just released those on election day. It's and they're just it isn't. I'm tired of Jill Stein. Jill Stein. Every Jill Stein voter was a potential Hillary voter. None of those people were going to vote for Trump, no matter what. It is annoying. Like she can go away. Well, no, I mean her opinions. I support her opinions more than I support Hillary's, but she still ruined the election for us. No, him too. Yeah, him too. That dumb stoner just needed to disappear like 2 months earlier, but here he is. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's called the Republican Party now. So well, yeah, fair enough. So yeah, as far as the recount thing, I mean, they should do it. They should always have due diligence. We want to make sure that the system's legitimate, just like any sort of replay in a game. I just want it to be right, win or lose. Um, I Yeah, and honestly, I feel like it'd almost be worse for the country if it did turn out. I mean, maybe not in the long run or for the world in the long run, but I do think that it were such a divided country that if it did come out that there was all of this stuff, I don't really even know how the country would react. I feel like we would just instantly in violence. Yeah, because then all of a sudden there's all those Trump supporters who also have guns. You know, well, yeah, that's why we're keeping this anonymous. Yeah, no, I mean that's the deterrent idea. I don't think guns make us any safer. I think that if someone breaks into your house and it's dark, you're more likely to kill your cat than you are to actually shoot the actual person. But yeah, also another topic we can. Yeah, well, and I just don't, and I mean, generally speaking, people just there isn't a lot of housebreaking deaths from house break-ins anymore. I don't, that's a horror movie, lifetime movie, type of reality that I just don't think really exists on that end. I mean, obviously, there's plenty of crime and there's plenty of reasons to be afraid in certain pockets of society, but I mean, ultimately, I'm not worried in my house here of someone coming in and attacking me in the middle of the night. I do have my sword under my bed just in case, but that's just that. Yeah, no, I mean it might not be that sharp, but it's enough that I think if as long as they don't have a gun, I feel like I win 9 out of 10 times. Yeah, and I mean I would rather go out swinging too. Ultimately, yeah, fair enough. All right, well I think we've gotten plenty off topic on that. So yeah, let's discuss the other half of diploma sports and look at today's games. I would have done great except for Seattle. Really laid an egg against the Bucks today. But other than that, my picks went pretty well. I'd say I was pretty right on everything. I really, for some stupid reason, took Houston at home over San Diego. Thought that would be a good pick. Thought it was absurd that they were 3-point underdogs at home. And they got smoked because they're the Texans and the Titans are gonna. Yeah, yeah. No, they had a chance. They really did. But nope. Yeah, and then the thing too is I just needed them really to score. I was really mad when they kicked the field goal instead of just scoring the touchdown and going for the onside kick because I really just needed them to score, even if they hadn't gotten the 2 point conversion because I had them +3. But nonetheless, I can rant and complain about my gambling losses all day long. Um, yeah, I think they were concerned about that too. They shouldn't be though. They should really only be concerned with covering the spread. That is their only job. And NFL teams should just care about that. I think that would be ridiculous if they just judged it based on not on who won and lost, but who just covered. Patriots still be the best. So, by the way, yeah, something like that. One thing to note is up until the last 2 weeks because they didn't cover today and they didn't cover the week before against Seattle. Um, but up until then they were 7-1, so now they're 7-3 against the spread. But still, obviously, pretty safe bet. So yeah, I have the Chiefs tonight +3.5. I have UCLA basketball, and then I have the under for this Chiefs game at 40.5, which I feel pretty good about because nobody has scored yet. It's 40.5. So I feel like a 17-14 victory for either Denver or Kansas City is pretty likely at this point. Yeah, yeah, 40 for the entire game. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that one. So yeah, that's looking ahead. Dolphins, your wonderful Dolphins won again. They tried so hard not to win that game, but they nonetheless won. Yeah, no, he's lost my rooting for. I would have rooted for him in this game, generally speaking, but not anymore. He didn't vote, so I don't really care. I'm not going to say that I endorse calling cops pigs. It's obviously not productive, but it's not like that's the first time that joke's ever been made. People call cops pigs all the time. Um, I mean, cops are generally not liked because they're always the ones who are busting people for bad things. So that I'm not. I don't think that that's this atrocious, horrible thing that he did. No, I think that the cops have brought a lot of the scrutiny upon themselves. But we can obviously delve deep into that as well at a future time. But I think, yeah, no, it's a fun game to watch. Yeah, yeah, that was pretty painful. I watched that whole game all the way through too, and I had the Rams, and I was really confident for 95% of that game. That's all Jeff Fisher's fault. That's good. They should be stuck with him. He should be gone. Obviously, Goff is not ready to play. I mean, he's a complete embodiment. If you want to, I mean, obviously, I know how you feel about the term white privilege, but I think Jeff Fisher is pretty much the embodiment of that. There's all these coaches who should have plenty more chances to actually get these jobs to be head coaches. I mean, there's so few African American or black coaches in the NFL. And here is Jeff Fisher going 8-8 every year for the last 15 years and still has a job. So I would just say he should be fired. Don't necessarily have to replace him with a black coach, but it would be nice. And well, that's what I'm saying is there's plenty of black coaches that are better at this than Jeff Fisher. I mean, I feel like the LA job is pretty prime. I mean, what coach wouldn't want to take that job? They have a pretty solid defense. They ultimately have, a rookie quarterback who who that first touchdown he threw today looked pretty nice actually. He's certainly not the reason they're losing, more or less. They're just ultimately, and I mean, you can't really stop the Saints with three good defensive players, but yeah, when he could have had Wentz and he could have had Dak like four different times. Yeah, no, exactly, and so yeah, I mean, but that's also then shouldn't he be fired for that too? Oh yeah, no, I agree. You can't give him the MVP. Like people are saying Dak for the MVP. If you're going to give somebody the MVP on that, other than the offensive line, it has to be Zeke Elliott. Yeah, I think offensive rookie of the year's fair, but yeah, I mean, but yeah, it's the line. I mean, if their line wasn't nearly as good, if any team, like you look at the teams that are improving, Oakland is getting better because they have a great line. Even Tennessee's line is great, and they're able to run the ball with Murray and Derrick Henry. Yes, sorry, exquisitely. So it's all about the offensive line. Well, no, and I think Tannehill might not actually be that bad. I mean, he's athletic. He's able to run when he needs to. He can get outside the pocket. He's got a decent deep arm. I mean, I don't think I've never thought Tannehill was terrible. Yeah, no, it's true. And I mean, even if you look at Miami, the reason they've gotten better is because they finally, shifted their offensive line to be a little bit more effective. It always comes down to the line, both defensive and offensive line. You got a good defensive line, you got a good offensive line. You're going to win a lot of games. Yeah, no, but I would argue that if you can do that to the other side too, like if you're someone with a JJ Watt or an Aaron Donald who can actually disrupt either the pass rush or running, at least make even just enough to make them one dimensional, then you're yeah. But Denver did win the Super Bowl last year, basically, thwarted that entire philosophy. Yeah. I would argue, I think so. Yeah, pretty. I mean, I've always Mark Sanchez. Well, that's the thing. I mean, that's how good that defensive was. You could actually the fact that you wouldn't laugh me off of the podcast by just saying Mark Sanchez. That was I will say that ESPN did a great bunch of things around the 4 year anniversary of the butt fumble. Just speaking of Mark Sanchez, which was the single proudest moment for any New York Jets fan, I'm sure. Um, but yeah, it was really funny. Like they did a sports science thing on it. They did like a whole ESPN thing on it. They had a bunch of polls. It was good. Like props to you, ESPN. You had a very I mean, because that is one of the most important days in sports history. It was indeed huge. Yeah, he dropped that ball bigly. Lots of nasty hombres or I mean, lots of bad hombres and nasty women around. We play tomorrow against the Packers at home. We should win. Our playoff hopes rest around winning this game, more or less. Yeah, I pretty much resigned to the fact that it's going to be between us and the racial slurs to make the playoffs. I think it's going to be three NFC East teams though. Um, I think he got injured in the last. I feel like I read that he got injured on Thanksgiving. They lost somebody on Thanksgiving, um, which you always hate to see because he's such a young player and he's been so good for the last 4 or 5 years. But it just seems like he's gotten hit in the head too many times. But I mean, yeah, we play that. We get the Skins at home, and Carson Wentz is a transcendent quarterback at home. He doesn't really seem to be quite as good on the road, but at this point, he's really good at home. Um, yeah, so we beat if we can beat them, if we can beat the Giants at home, we get the Cowboys in Week 17, and the Cowboys most likely won't be playing for anything at that time. Other than trying to knock the Eagles out, hopefully they just won't be nearly as hopefully they'll be sitting Dak, um, and Zeke, but I don't. Oh, and Darren McFadden. That is pretty sad, actually. Actually, that is still kind of a bad situation for the Eagles because, yeah, that's right. If Dak sits, then we get stuck with Romo. And Romo playing for a contract next year to try to show that he still got it. So yeah, actually, never mind. That really terrifies me. Really, yeah, like can we just play Dak? Yeah, can we just not be up by 30 so they can sit Dak that way? Because yeah, Romo puts up 5 touchdowns last game of the season, so that the Bears trade 2 first-round picks for him or something ridiculous like that. Yeah, I know. Dumb Bengals. God. Bengals in London. Those are things are supposed to be helping me this year. But yeah, so I figured the Giants, unless the Giants collapse, the Giants will be that first wild card team. Then it kind of comes down to us, the Buccaneers or the Falcons, if one of those, if they sort of fall. You got the racial slurs, and then I guess that's really it because Arizona lost again, so we can't really expect anything out of them. Really not expecting anything. Maybe the Vikings, but the Packers I think are garbage, and I think we'll win tomorrow pretty easily. Carson Palmer is wrong with the Cardinals. Yeah, let's touch on on fantasy for a bit. Maybe our 5 listeners will care about our fantasy league going on right now. Um, I'm probably going to win, but I don't think it's going to matter. For some reason, our playoffs are only set up to have 4 teams. I tried to change it to 6, but I already missed the boat on that one. So we're down to 4 teams for the playoff. It's currently you, our friend Tim, who always seems to be good, even though his draft really didn't feel like it was as strong this year. Maybe we'll bring him on one of these times to talk about it. Yes, and then we have my friend from Highland Backers who auto drafted and ended up with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, and now is first place leading the league. So that's that, and then possibly my friend Steven, who will probably be joining us at one point in this little endeavor we're doing as well. Uh, I mean, he's not really a socialist. We've gone back and forth. He's definitely someone who he's an economist, so he believes in free market and things of that nature. But he's also a little bit more rational than you, I would say. No, probably the same one. But either way, well, he's someone who wants to he wants to come on and write and talk, and we'd be happy to have him. Yeah, and they had some chances to win that game against Dallas. I mean, that would if they had won that game, we would be looking at this, and I'd be probably saying, yeah, that they're probably going to be the last wild card team. But I mean, I don't know. The Bucks and the Falcons, one of those 2 teams could really surge on. Yeah, no, it's very good beating Kansas City on the road the week before, where Kansas City hadn't lost like a game in like 12 games or some ridiculous or home games and like 12 home games or some ridiculous stat like that. So yeah, no, it, it's still 0-0. Something happened. It's left. Yeah, it's gonna be one of those kind of games. Might even be 10-3 at the end of it. Yeah, to be honest, I haven't really followed the NBA too much this last week. I've had a pretty busy week with everything, so I'll let you take the lead on this. What has been going on with our lovable Lakers? They lost to the Warriors, right? I saw that. Yeah, hey, exciting first round exit is more than we could have hoped for. Like looking at how terrible it was 2 years ago. I think he's going to come back. Yeah, no, he's he's gonna try to put up 60 again. See if he's got it. Yeah, no, I really don't actually genuinely think Kobe's coming back, but it would be funny to have to have to sit to be in the room when all the telling all those young players, oh hey, yeah, I know you thought this was your team, but it's actually not for another year. No, best case scenario, he tries to come back. Lakers say no. He gets signed by the Kings. Him and DeMarcus Cousins play the Lakers and like towards the end of the regular season and beat them and knock them out of the playoffs. That would be just great. See him on the Kings with DeMarcus Cousins. Yeah, you think DeMarcus Cousins is going to be traded? I feel like they're just right. They're doing a disservice to the league keeping him on that team. I mean, how cool would it be if they traded him to the Celtics or like one of the contenders? You think the Cavs would trade him straight up for Kevin Love? Kevin Love and J.R. Smith for Rudy Gay and DeMarcus Cousins. Very Kings thing to do, though, right? We're gonna build around Kevin Love. Yeah, sounds great. So, sign me up. Yes, I do. I do. I want to discuss the fact that the new games have just come out. Yes, yeah. We have layers. We're like onions. Well, yeah, I beg to differ with some things you say, but we can go to that on the. Well, yes, I did want to talk about Pokemon. I am very pleased with the new rendition. I think that one they are also while trying to add enough different things to make the game feel different with the island challenges and sort of getting rid of the gyms. and sort of the store, sort of standard cookie cutter way that they've been doing these games. But I still also feel that it's plenty nostalgic. There's plenty of new things, and the new additions, the new Pokemon, plus the new sort of the new forms of the old Pokemon have been great. The new Diglett is funny with its hair, and yeah, no, I mean, yeah, yeah. So I find that very cool. I think that the whole eliminating Surf, because anybody who's played Pokemon knows that HMs suck. And yeah, basically you only basically now you just ride these Pokemon that you just can call on at any point, which doesn't. Yes. So you get like a Charizard to fly, you get Lapras to swim, you get like a bunch of stuff. Yeah, so yeah, and I think that's one thing to note about Nintendo in general is I feel like they actually do listen more than most, because I feel like Assassin's Creed has been producing the same game for the last 4 years and not really listening to a lot of advice and just kind of doing the same thing. I could say the same thing about Call of Duty. Whereas I feel like Nintendo, at least with their franchise games where they keep rehashing and releasing the same thing over and over again, at least they are doing their best to make sure that these are new features and they're new enough things that consumers and fans will enjoy. It was just annoying. But one thing I will say is this game is incredibly easy. And yeah, I know. And with the experience share, I pretty much just have my starter just killing everybody and just getting the experience. Yeah, so I mean, so what they essentially did is they did make the game easier by making it more streamlined. I mean, I haven't been through an annoying cave that's taken me 3 days to get through because, and then where I've needed flash and not had it or something of that nature. So I haven't. So there's a lot of wrinkles that I think are worth mentioning. Oh, and the Chiefs got a safety and are now I think running back the either the punt or the kickoff or whatever's happened because now they're up by 9. So no, Kansas City's in Missouri. So yeah, and it's not the capital of Kansas. It is Topeka, if you were wondering. Lovely Topeka, which hopefully we'll have listeners from at one point in our lives. I've heard it's really good. I really want to play that as well. Yeah, no, I played the first one too, but I sold it eventually because I just got over the no campaign. And I'm not someone who just plays shooters online for hours and hours. I'll play Madden online for hours and hours, but I'm not one that I used to do that a little bit with Call of Duty, but if you don't have a campaign, I'm not normally too invested. Which is saying something more or less. Yeah, no, I'm trying to think because I did play through the whole campaign, but I couldn't tell you one thing that happened in the campaign that I can remember right now. Yeah, and then there was the one where Kevin Spacey was a bad guy. Yeah. Not even just Kevin Spacey, like Kevin Spacey from House of Cards, like just like give him a different. Now, if you didn't think that was actually going to happen, then you're just a total moron and thought, oh, Kevin Spacey, he's really going to be my friend through this whole thing, and you just don't. And I haven't played the new one, but I'm assuming Jon Snow dies and comes back. Oh yeah, sorry, spoiler alert. If you, but yes, you should watch Game of Thrones. That should be something that if you have not watched Game of Thrones, I don't feel bad for spoiling that for you because you're terrible and you haven't caught it yet. Yeah, to be fair, there's already like clips of like see season 6 where he's like fighting Ramsay and stuff. So I mean, yeah, if you didn't get it spoiled that Jon Snow is not actually dead, then you just aren't paying attention, and you're probably not listening to this podcast. So I shouldn't worry about it. I agree. Never trust a Bolton. No, this is America. We don't get along with Russia. That's just how it works. Fair enough. That's a weird analogy with which to end and to look at this, but I think I do have to go, so we should end it on that note. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you everybody for listening. We will be recording another podcast within the week. We will try to choose a controversial subject like immigration, where hopefully you can actually get some moments where we are yelling at each other because that is kind of what we're going for. So thank you again for listening, and feel free to check out, or please check out our Facebook and Twitter, and leave comments and feedback. And eventually we will have music to play us out. But for now, this has been Diploma Sports, an intelligent intersection of politics and sports. My name is Nick, and thank you again, Ghost. We'll talk to you soon.